Welcome to GoSimcha, the podcast that takes you on an in-depth approach to the Jewish music, entertainment, and simcha world. Now, here's your host, Zisha Littman. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of GoSimcha, the podcast. We had so much fun recording the episode, but it couldn't have been done without the help of our sponsor, Keren Simchas Chassan V'Kalos. We're going to take a minute to hear a little bit more about them. The following episode of GoSimcha, the podcast, is proudly sponsored by Keren Simchas Chassan V'Kala. Keren Simchas Chassan V'Kala was founded over 25 years ago and is based in Brooklyn, New York. KSCVK helps widows, orphans, and people who are in dire need of marrying off a child. Working through their network of vendors, KSCVK ensures that every wedding is just as special as the next. Run by world-renowned party planner Devorah Benjamin, KSCVK takes care that each wedding is as elegant as the next one, ensuring dignity and class through every wedding that they put on. To donate to KSCVK, please visit their website, kscvk.org, today. That's kscvk.org, and help make someone's wedding special. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 31 of GoSimcha, the podcast. It is pretty cool. We surpassed the 30 mark. Awesome. Go us. High five. Yay. Thank you so much to all the wonderful listeners out there on all the multiple platforms that we stream the site on and the show on. And it's on many websites. It's on a couple radio stations now. Baruch Hashem, we keep growing. And it wouldn't be possible without the love and support of you guys, our fans and our listeners. So I thank you very much for that. This week's episode, we're sitting down with somebody really cool. He's a musician, a very, very, very talented musician by trade, and he's working on a new sound to bring out to the Jewish world for simchas and all sorts of cool things. So we're sitting down today with Nissim Asaraf of Jewtronix, a new innovative Jewish music sound. So Nissim's going to talk to us a little bit about Jewtronix, because when I first heard about Jewtronix, I was like, what is Jewtronix? It sounds like a little bit of bagels and cream cheese mixed with electronic hip hop music. And I quickly learned that Jewtronix is nothing like what I just said over there, but it's something more, something deep, and something cool. So Nissim, what's going on, buddy? Welcome to the show. How are we doing today?
Thanks, Zisha. Mazal Tov on the 31st show. It's really great what you're doing here.
Yeah, it's really, it is. You know, it feels like yesterday when we just started the show. The first episode we had with Shlomi Gertner, I was like so nervous, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Never had hosted a podcast before. Now we're here 31 episodes later, sitting down with you, talking about you, with nearly 50,000 listeners on a regular basis tuning in. So it's pretty cool. And I'm happy you're here with me today, buddy.
Thank you. Thank God.
Sure. So talk to me. So what's your deal? I was looking at your website. I was listening to some of your music. You're a very talented musician, and you and I share a few commonalities. The fact that you play saxophone and drums is something that I grew up doing. I started off when I was in grade 5 playing saxophone all the way through grade 12. Drums when the only valuable thing I bought with my bar mitzvah money was a drum set. And unfortunately it got ruined in a flood that happened in my parents' basement, but it's all good. So what's your deal?
Well, Jewtronix is, first of all, a music group that specializes in creating electronic dance music renditions of traditional Jewish prayers and liturgy. And our upcoming album is called Kabshab, for Kabbalat Shabbat, as you imagine. The first song that we first released last month is called Yedid Nefesh, one prayer that we're very familiar with, that we enter into Shabbat with. And if you go ahead and take a listen, you'll quickly realize that it doesn't sound like your traditional Yedid Nefesh. In other words, our goal really is to fuse the two worlds of the secular electronic quality dance music, which the Jewish world has really been seeing, from my opinion, a very 2008, 2009 sound with heavy emphasis on the synths, and Jewtronix is going for heavy emphasis on the future of EDM. For example, heavy reggaeton and future house and deep house sounds that you'll hear in the rest of our album. So we combine these secular instrumentals we use them to create renditions of the Jewish liturgy while maintaining the original lyrics and the original melody. A lot of Carlebach melodies, Sephardic melodies, and traditional in Chabad as well.
Nice. Yeah, I noticed that. I was listening to it. I was listening to the Di Nefesh rendition, and it was really cool. Meaning, like, you kept the same. You kept the niggin the same, but you just added a couple layers of EDM to it, and you added some more some different things to it, and it really brought out the song. I have to say, it really brought out the song. It's pretty cool. So yeah, how did this all begin? Like, how did this concept come to you? Like, what exactly were you thinking? Like, what was going on when you're like, I want to sit down and create a new sound?
Well, this is going to go back a little bit. Starts in my public high school days, growing up as a traditional Sephardic Jew, going to Chabad Hebrew school until my bar mitzvah, like all my other friends. And I started DJing for a company with a guy named Leon at All Around Entertainment. I was DJing bar mitzvahs and weddings and learning about how to DJ and the art of mixing and the art of events. And eventually, we took a move to Miami, and that's where my exposure to EDM and DJing blew up a little bit, as well as my exposure to what we know as Orthodox Judaism. I was in organizations like Chabad Sitin and CSY. I was also in BBYO for a little bit as well. And through summer programs like TJJ, the Jerusalem Journey with NCSY, and eventually later on Birthright, I really got to love the Zmirot and Kumzitz music sessions through the Shabbatons and learning about the Jewish music. As we know, Jewish music is really like the window to the soul. If you're in tune, you have the proper kavana, it really touches a chord in your body that runs a gamut of emotions, like the ecstasy of a festive occasion or the sorrow of a melancholy moment, for example. And on the other hand, while I'm going to these Shabbatons, I was also DJing some pretty cool deep Miami club and events and weddings and bar mitzvahs and subscribing.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. Like, you on one hand, you have like you have the kidusha of the music, and you have the kidusha of everything that you're working on, and then the other hand, you're dealing with like the heavy Miami club scene and things like that. It's got to be insane, you know, like to see those two polar opposites, and I think it's cool how you took those two polar opposites and combined them to make Jewtronix.
Absolutely. Miami is a real juxtaposition. You have like walking to shul, you have meditation groups on the beach to your right, and then on your left you have synagogue. And so anyways, my first mashup trial sample that I used in GarageBand was Tov Lehodot Lashem with a Major Lazer song. And I made it. It's not, I wouldn't release it today, but I showed it to a lot of my NCSY friends, and they thought it was a pretty cool idea. So that's when the spark came, the chachma. So I had to capture that, and it settled in my head. I wanted to go actually to Oorah Yeshiva in Israel, but I took a turn instead to Temple University to study cinematography, where I am now in my final year. And that's where Hashem had a bigger plan for Jewtronix.
Wow.
Chapter 2.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So so all the while you've been really building this up until now. So then where to get to at this point? You're saying this is kind of you've been in film school. So now where are you holding with Jewtronix now?
In the first year of film school, the idea of Jewish EDM kind of settled to the back of my head. As I was getting acquainted with my surroundings. But the second year, there was this grant available for the arts, and I took a shot at it, and I applied for the grant with this idea of Jewish EDM, and to my surprise, it got funded. It was really Really interesting. One, mostly because somebody out there believed in the idea, or maybe it was Hashem showing me that, come on, you got to push this into existence. And then eventually I used the funds to produce another track, and I looked into a music technology and entrepreneurship certificate, which is what I enrolled in now. And through that, I actually landed in a pretty interesting position in the entrepreneurship department. They have a business competition called Be Your Own Boss Bowl.
Mhm.
And I said, well, maybe if it worked on this small grant level, it'll take off on this bigger level. And with my mentor, Paul Abrams, at the time, I put together some type of business plan and a pitch deck. I really knew nothing about this side of business. And I stayed up till 4 a.m. for a few nights before submitting it. And when I submitted, I barely even knew what the idea was. It was something with Jewish EDM, some mobile app that you can download and remix songs. It wasn't so clear even to me, but again, to my surprise, it got selected out of over 100 participants.
Oh, wow,
So
that's really cool.
it was another push from Hashem, and we were
That's
able
really cool.
to. This is all happening in the past year and a half,
Oh, wow.
and
This is
it was
fresh.
yeah, in the spring semester of 2018, I got this Be Your Own Boss Bowl competition, and then another grant called CARIS for the creative arts and research to actually give us some studio time to produce Yedid Nefesh. And then there's this law firm called Ballard Spahr, and they have a Ballard Academy for Student Entrepreneurs where the lawyers offer free or pro bono services. And through them, these I'm really learning the contract, the business side, and management side of things. So you see these like three giant things happen a month apart, and I couldn't not take it as a sign from the heavens that it needs to be done.
For sure, it's a shkacha pratis, man. Like but again, it's still like so interesting how you're taking this one the kidusha of music and elevating the sparks of the music and putting it together with this new sound with this new sound to dance to, and other people are doing it. But like it seems like like exactly what you said before, like it's all about the kavanas, and that's how it is. Like everything, it's all about the kavanas. And after listening to it, I did listen to it. I listened to your song a couple times. First time I had to digest it. The second time I was getting there, and by the third time I was like, wow, this is really powerful and really cool. And if you can do this with one niggin, just imagine the possibilities you could do with others. And it's funny because I remember when we spoke initially, you were talking to me about how you're also working on a couple of different other sound creatives, like taking like and creating new sound, taking real instruments and turning them into electronic loops. And I thought that was pretty cool too. Like all these things that you're doing are just like really incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad that you appreciate it. Really, the goal is to bring people like me. I don't want to say secular. I don't like putting anything in boxes. We're all Jews, but bringing people who are less aware initially about Judaism closer to closer to Judaism through something that speaks to them, such as electronic dance music. And we're trying to do it in a way that doesn't desecrate the holiness of the original text and melodies. And the goal in the future, in a few more months, we'll be performing in the summer with a band. The songs that we created in the studio will be using mostly acoustic instruments and miking them with certain pickups in order to send them through digital transformers and try to recreate the sounds that we created in the studio, the digital ones, but with the energy of acoustic instruments. So I have a music engineer, Jesse Wexler, who's going to take care of that complicated stuff.
So I was gonna say, you got to explain that to me because that is something that sounds pretty interesting, and that could change the way that simcha bands play. That could change like the whole game when it comes to weddings and bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and all types of smachot. Like yeah, you got to explain that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal uh, with maybe let me start with this story. I recently went to see EDM artists who performed at Temple University with my good friend Maury Katan, and it was the first time that I went to this type of EDM concert in a long time, and I was really surprised. The visual component is huge in electronic dance music concerts, but it's being used in a very manipulative way, like flashing curse words and inappropriate images on the screen while the DJ, while the MC, Dylan Francis, is cursing into the microphone at times. And we really, you can really see the influence. So it's so important to transform the darkness into light. So imagine being at a bar mitzvah and you see Jewtronix set up with what looks like a regular drum kit and a regular saxophone, but minutes later you realize that it doesn't really sound like what it looks like at all. For example, one idea we were brainstorming with is putting a orange street cone, one of those construction ones,
Yeah.
into the saxophone upside down in order to give it more of that wub wub dubstep kind of bass sound, which we all love today. And we think about a lot on a more maybe psychological point of view. Why is it that today so many EDM listeners are in love with this machinery kind of sound?
Right.
And there are a lot of things I talk with my good friend Daniel Innovate about these theories. Why do we have why is the music industry standardized the A note, for example, at 440 hertz instead of 432, which like it used to be? And how does that have an effect on the subconscious of the listener? And is it because we reached the industrial age that we're starting to really love these sounds of machinery, robots, toys, kind of vibrational patterns? So yeah, back to the bar mitzvah or weddings. Man, it's in the forefront, in my third eye, in the head. I see it so well. I think you just have to experience it. Like, my dream really is to recreate that kavana when you're at, for example, what you'd imagine it feels like to be at a small, intimate Carlbach concert, and combined with the incredible energy of an EDM concert. Maybe like even take the mechitza and transform it into LED screens. They'll forget that they're even separated. They're just really in the music and the kavana. So at Simchas,
Cool.
God willing, yeah, we'll be raising the bar with the energy levels and collaborating, God willing, with the original existing choirs who bring so much good energy and vibes to the Jewish music industry.
Man, this sounds so cool. I really, you're getting me anxious. I really can't wait to hear this because it really sounds so cool. And again, like what you said before, the hashpah that these people, that when you go to a concert like that and you see the types of hashpah that they're giving off, it's not like such a positive one. And to do what you're doing and to give that same environment, give that same like vibe to people, except in a more kosher environment with more positive hashpah, and taking that kidusha with inside the music and bringing it out to people, it's really cool. And you're going to see a lot of success and a lot of atzlacha and bracha come from it. And I'm excited about this new sound, because like what you're saying, it's like people are going to show up to a wedding and they're going to see the regular band sitting there, but all of a sudden they're going to turn on that first dance, and it's going to be a totally different ball game. That's going to be insane. And it's going to really revolutionize the simcha world. So my other question is, how did you hook up with your boy Yishai over there? It seemed like I was looking through your stuff, and you said that you guys collaborated together on this song, and Yishai Revivo from Israel. I've heard of him. He's pretty well known out here. So how did you hook up with him?
Pretty another Hashgacha Prati story. He's Yishai. He goes by Yishai Music now.
Right.
We maybe I'll put it this way. Let's go back to that. Remember the Be Your Own Boss Bowl competition
Yes.
I mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
So after I got selected, I actually came across very randomly Isaac Grunwald's Jewish music streaming app called Shira Lee in the App Store a week before the competition. And it discouraged me a little bit to continue with my Jewish music idea pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So I pivoted to another idea I had quickly, which gamifies the bar mitzvah education industry. It's called Torah Tones, and I'll be working on that later on. It's like a mix of Duolingo and going to your rabbi to learn how to read your parsha.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you're pretty innovative, man. You're pretty innovative with these things. I saw the Shirley app, by the way. I actually had it on my phone for about a minute. This is not a product plug for Shirley, but it was a pretty interesting app. I sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, but it's another way of streaming Jewish music to people. It's like Spotify for Jewish music.
Mm-hmm.
But your idea sounded a little bit cooler.
We're all Jewish innovators trying to do our work.
There you go. But yeah, you were saying?
Yeah. So as I was exploring his app, I found that there was a section for genres, and there was a hip hop and also an electronic section. So I have a Bluetooth speaker in the shower where I used to live in my old apartment, and I just put on this random thing. It was Yishai's music. I didn't really know what it was, but I saw it said like Nigun Semach Tzedek. So I put it on and I start showering, and I hear it starting to build up. I hear the original Nigun, and then I hear these incredible new hip hop and house instruments. And I tell myself in my mind, wow, if this drop is going to live up to my level of expectations, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it did. And I stopped in my tracks for 30 seconds, just kind of playing out how the future will be. Here's this guy halfway across the world doing the same thing that I was doing. And it turns out we had the same idea around the same time. And later, I think in a History Channel episode, I read that this happens in the world, like these ideas. There's something called universal consciousness. Come into the world at the right time because they're meant to be there. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, vaguely, yes.
It's a cool idea. That's what I commonly attribute to this Hashgacha Pratit. Anyways, after I get out of the shower, I'm researching him, writing down the rest of his music, and looking at his Facebook page. And again, this was in the spring of 2018. And that summer, I was going on Israel Links. It was a Chabad summer trip. And I was in Israel, and he was in Israel. So I got a track down of his number, his older brother, the manager. And we ended up meeting at a coffee shop in the Diamond District in Tel Aviv.
Nice.
And I pitched to him my vision for this Jewish EDM future. And he's actually in the army still. He's finishing up this year. Right. So he's working really hard on the side to push a music career. And he's extremely talented in what he's doing, making covers and mashups of other Israeli and Jewish songs. And he thought about it. I ended up coming back to USA, finished my last year at Temple University, and we're talking, and it turns out that his mefaked, his commander in the army, actually was willing to give him 3 weeks off from the army, which is kind of highly unusual. So that was another Hashgacha Prati circumstance. We found a date that worked, and he came over for 3 weeks, and that's when we started building a studio in my small apartment and getting cracking, starting on the arrangements, choosing the melodies, thinking about the future singers, and creating the vision together. And so far we have a few really great tracks waiting to be released to the public. And that is the story with Ishai.
Wow, that's really cool. So he's involved in this heavily, it seems like.
Yeah, although I should mention that Jewtronix, in the same way, the Revivo project,
Yeah.
my hope for it is to be a collaboration. I'm looking to collaborate with today's today's Jewish singers and also today's electronic dance music producers to really bring the two worlds together in a kosher way, but also in a way that brings the brotherhood and achdus together.
That's really amazing. That's really, really amazing, and you're doing a great job at it. So how many other tracks have you produced so far? Because on your website you only have one. You only have You Did Nefesh. So how many other tracks have you produced? How many are in the works? What's going on with that?
I should mention, just so I don't sound arrogant, I'm really just the conduit, the middleman, making this happen because it has to be, not because it's like a incredible ego-filled idea. But our next song is a mashup of Lechu Nuranina, Carlbach style, with Carlbach's Shiru Lashem.
Ooh.
And
so that's gonna be a pretty uppity tune there.
It's incredible. It's disgusting, as we say in the EDM music industry.
Okay. I guess for all our listeners out there who are not familiar with the lashon over there, what disgusting.
Like, there's something interesting that my cousin once told me. When we hear in electronic dance music, or frankly, I guess any song, a minor drop, which is like, if you listen to a lot of Sephardic music from the Middle East, a lot of it is minor.
Yeah.
It challenges the listener in a way much different than a major drop would. Like, if you hear a drop that sounds similar to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, it's not challenging your mind because your brain is expecting these happy next note to next note progressions. However, in a minor, from my understanding, in a minor drop, it challenges you in a way that makes you what's the best way to put this? It's like dun 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 dun. You feel like something is a little bit wrong, but it's meant to be wrong, and in that you feel it in your body. You feel like you make this face like, oh, that was nasty. That was exactly how it was meant to be. It's like I see the light, I feel it. I'm totally in line with that music drop,
Right. That's pretty interesting. No, but you seem to really have you really have your hand on the pulse here with this, and it's really cool. Like, have you noticed though? I mean, I personally noticed that a lot of Jewish music has gone this route also. Like a lot of people have started going into more electronic music, but not to the scope that you're doing. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's interesting you're pointing that out. There's a Sinai Scholars Mentor Protege program. It's like for college students, they can write these papers. And this past 2 years, I've been working on papers about Jewish EDM and how maybe Jewish EDM is, as we're getting closer to the coming of Mashiach, God willing, it's maybe the new song, Shir Chadash. Who knows? Maybe on my website, you'll go to events, and you'll see location, Beis HaMikdash, date to be determined very soon, though. And I'm just saying this is like half jokingly, but also we have to keep up, I think, with the generations. And we don't want to modernize too much because we see what happens when that occurs.
Oh, for sure.
But I agree with what you're saying, that I also noticed, the DJ, Leviticus with a Y, he once made a deep Purim track that's also, if you go listen to it, it's in that minor kind of sound, and that really is reflective of this
well, it's interesting.
Sound.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you brought that up because it's funny because there's a lot in the Jewish music world. There's a lot of mainstream singers who, I mean, we've had so far on our show, and then there's a lot of other guys who are more underground. I mean, like, I don't know much you know into the Jewish music world, but there was people like Leviticus, and then Love, and then Describe, and a ton of these other guys who are like more underground kind of Jewish music, and have tracks that are a bit like either more in line with hip hop, or electronic, and it's pretty interesting to see. But then again, you have a lot of the main conventional guys, mainstream guys, coming out here now, putting on a lot of electronic music and doing a lot of things with like synthesizers and keyboards and things like that. It is pretty interesting to see the curve and how things are going. But I think what you're doing is something of a kidusha, as we'd say, and it's not something that other people are going to start doing right away. Meaning, like what you said about performing a live set and putting on the electric hookups and things like that. I don't see that happening with the mainstream wedding singers in the near future. And I think that's pretty cool that you kind of have this market that you'll be able to get involved in all to yourself.
Yeah, interesting, Zisha. You're mentioning those names like Describe and D1, people
Yep.
who are in like the Matisyahu kind of 2008, 2013
Yeah.
era. They were doing really great from my understanding. I was much younger, so I wasn't as aware. But from my research, and you probably know better, it was this kind of revamping of Jewish music, seeing how far they could take it maybe. But it slowly got defunded.
It kind of went the wayside because people weren't the listeners weren't into it. The people who are the hardcore Jewish music listeners were not so into that kind of sound. And as you can see, it did go to the wayside. But like I said, I think what you're doing is something totally like different from like a rapper, or like, I mean, we have rap, there's rappers. We have the famous Nissim Black, he's a good friend of mine. Had him on my show. He was actually the inspiration for me to start this podcast over like half a year ago. But he does actually really, Nissim, if you ever gotten in touch with him, he does an amazing job. He's a singer, he's a writer, producer. He mixes his own tracks. He's a jack of all trades, and his sound like changes every single day. And he's gotten in. He was a little bit more into like getting back into his hip hop roots with some of his sound. But he keeps it extremely kosher. And it's the same thing you're doing. You're taking that kedusha and bringing that into the music, into this outside source of music, and really elevating those sparks of kedusha within inside of it. That's what I'm telling you. You got something special there, man.
Thank God, yeah. And Nissim's also a graphic designer, from my understanding. It's people like him and Jewtronix and Matt Dubb, Leviticus, me, Yishai were like almost redoing what was happening back then in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Dubb also, he's also like somebody, he's pretty big. I mean, when I first started him, he was together with Lipa Schmelzer. Him and Lipa did like some sort of like this like EDM kind of album, which was like a combination of Lipa's music and EDM, similar to what you're doing, but like Lipa. I don't know if you heard it. Like him, it was actually pretty cool. And it kind of like sparked because Lipa did it. It kind of sparked this whole movement and kind of brought that out, and kind of I think that's when Matt Dubb kind of became more popular and more out there, because his music's great. Like he does collaborations with like Zusha and some of these other guys, and his stuff is great. But I still think no one is doing what you plan on doing, is that bringing those acoustic instruments into the electronic space. And again, it's a chiddush, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, God willing.
So other than all this, like what does the future hold for Jewtronix?
After our first album, this one, which ends with Shalom Aleichem, so you can imagine what's in between all the Psalms and Eshet Chayil. It's going to be so incredible. The next album will be Motz Esh. Kab Shab is the first one. Motz Esh is the second one. It'll be a perfect pair to go together as well as to perform on places like, C-Teen. I spent Shabbos with Lee Ershkovitz, the creative director, and she speaks how much they work so hard to do as much as they can to relate to the teenagers, especially on Saturday night when they have the giant Times Square's concerts and also
Right.
back at the venues. So that's what's in the future. And then we'll have some albums for holidays specific, Purim, Hanukkah, and then Nigun specific. The Chabad on campus rabbi, Baruch Shalom Cantor at Temple University, is a Baal Menagin, coincidentally, and he really taught me a lot of Nigunim over the years.
Oh wow, that's pretty good. You should get him to come sing on one of your albums. You should come get him to do a whole Chabad track and get him to come sing on one of your albums.
Yeah, that is in the works, God willing.
Oh yeah, nice. Because that'll be something. You get that out to the Chabadskers, that'll be something that people will bump at the Farbrengens. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, Zishak, did you get a chance to see the video component of Yedid Nefesh on YouTube?
I did. It was actually pretty cool. My background also is in video production, cinematography, and all that kind of fun creative space. So I was able to, I got it and I understood it, and it was pretty cool what you're doing. The amount of layering and the work that you put into that video must have been very time consuming.
Oh yeah. Just to describe it. Yeah, go ahead.
I made one. I did a video once like that. Intensive amounts of layering. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes. But it was pretty cool. It flowed. I like how it flowed. Like everything kind of like flowed. Like everything's like the words are bouncing up and down with each thing. You're giving over the chords so people can see it and play it and everything like that. It was like visually captivating.
Mm-hmm. My roommate Justin Ryan is translating it to Chinese. All the people who go on YouTube to learn the lyrics of the prayers.
Seriously?
There's so many lyric videos, and I guess it's also non-Jews are interested in it too.
Well, yeah, I definitely knew. I didn't know they were into the music. I knew they were into learning. I know that in I think it's Japan or Korea, one of those Asian countries, they think that like because we learn Gemara, it makes us smart. So Kol Shekain, it's going to make them smarter. So I think they have the art. I don't know. Maybe they use the art schools. I don't know. But yeah, that I did not know. That people go online to learn the lyrics to these songs, to these nigunim. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a huge educational component to this. The music is entertaining, but here we can teach you the words, how to say the words, what they mean, maybe some background on the song, like when it was composed, why it was composed, what it means, the context of other lyricists during the time. And perhaps in the future, you'll see some type of education curriculum in collaboration with NCSY or JLI with a course just dedicated to this.
Yeah, totally. That would be something very special. It seems like you're also out there to educate people as well. It seems like you're not just in this to make music and to do bar mitzvahs and do weddings and things like that. It seems like you're also out here to educate people, because there's a lot that people can learn from it, both from the Torah's perspective and from the music perspective. Is that am I right on that? Did I hit that pretty well?
Pretty well, yeah. I used to be a Chabad Hebrew school teacher at Chevy Lowenstein's, like a Chabad for kids who were about to have their bar mitzvah. I was teaching Hebrew because my mom is from Petach Tikva. So I grew up learning and I was able to teach, but I really didn't think about education until that experience. And it was through that I realized that we really have to pull our brothers and sisters up with us as we climb up the ladder.
Nice. So I want to ask you another question. On your website, in your bio, it says your name is Justin Harrison, but your real name is Nissim Asaraf. So where did Justin Harrison come in?
Nissim, our Hebrew names are, as you know, it's our essence, our true soul. And the Hebrew name that we have has much heavier implications than many of my peers realize. So it's been an internal battle with these names, as I'm sure many other people think about who are in a similar position. Justin. It's what I grew up with going to public school. I still use it in college. I mean, Nissim is pretty weird and for a professor to say, but
Just tell them your name means miracle, and everybody's going to say your name is going to pass the test.
yeah, it reminds me of all the girls who have these like names like Mercedes and Destiny. Why not? I could do it too, right?
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
No, but it's true. The name has a very powerful connotation. Trust me, I've been there also. I mean, my English name is Sean, and for the longest time, when I was doing business with people, even when I was doing business with from a Yidden, I was going by Sean because that was my name. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been in Israel now for about 10 years, and I go by Zisha because I just said, you know what? Why not? I'm in Israel. Why should I go by my slave name? It's my slave name, Sean, and go by Zisha. And you see, like it brings out the true essence of within you. So are you thinking about changing your bio on your site to say your real name, or you're going to keep it as is?
It's a good point. Well, you know what? I guess we'll find out once we hang up what the result will be.
Well, there you go. I'm gonna refresh the page after we're done on the show. I'm gonna refresh the page and see what you did. But no, man, it really it brings out a totally different different connotation and everything. It brings out a totally new person when
Yeah.
you're with your real name and the real essence of who you are. And I think it's pretty cool. And I think it shows in your music. The story you said, your whole story, is it really reflects your name, Nissim. Like you didn't grow up from, and you got connected to music. It was Nissim. It was Hashgacha Pratis. How you got the way you got connected to music, the way you got involved in this whole thing, and you every single day, one day after the next, it's a continuation. It's just so live it, be proud of it, be you, man, and just keep inspiring people and keep doing your thing.
Yeah, Zisha, you're really right. Nissim was my grandfather's name. He grew up in Baghdad, and apparently,
Wow.
before they were pushed out of Baghdad to Israel, my great grandparents had some type of wealthy business going on over there, and then they went to Grushim, to nothing, when they came to Israel. So we all have these high highs and low lows, and we got to realize that everything happens for a reason, and maybe we don't need to assimilate even 1%. Maybe we got to be confident with who we are from the start. Although for the past 5 years, I've been using Justin Harrison Productions, my production company, to establish a name for me as a graphic designer, web designer, video creator. So who knows?
Who knows what Nissan will occur, but that's pretty cool. Wow. Well, I really learned a lot from you, and I'm so happy that you joined us on our show today for episode 31. It was an honor and a pleasure, and you have a lot going on for you. You're going. I see big things for you with this. I think it's really going to change the way we do simchas and we do music, and I think that you're really going to see tremendous hatzlacha come from it, because it's new, it's exciting, and it brings out a totally different flavor into our traditional nigunim, and I think that it's gonna really be a blast at weddings, and I wish you all the best. I wish you tremendous hatzlacha with it, and you know just keep me posted, keep me updated on what's going on with it, because I can't wait to hear the full album. If Yedidafish was dope and amazing, I can only imagine what the rest of the album is going to sound like.
Yeah, you have no idea. The tempo is much faster. The drop is sick. And
Oh man.
just wait.
Oh
You
man.
too,
Oh man.
Zisha. You should really have continued success. You putting this podcast together, as well as GoSimcha.com, allowing people to easily access vendors, it creates a vessel that makes it much easier and much more accessible in a similar way to what I'm doing with the music. You're also doing with your company. So thank you.
100%. No, for sure. And I really feel like you and I are connected pretty well over here. I feel like you and I are very similar. Like our backgrounds are very similar, and I feel like I really connected with you on this one. And like I said, just keep doing your thing and continue bringing the light out, and continue giving up, like really doing your thing with your music. And I wish you hatzlacha. Thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend.
Amen. Thank you. Continued atzlacha.
Amen.
You've just listened to another wonderful episode of GoSimcha the podcast. For more news, updates, and information on our next episode, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at GoSimcha Live, and don't forget to check out the show notes and videos on www.gosimcha.com along with zeradio.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, Go Simcha!